The emergency klaxon wailed through the Federation Council chambers as security alerts flashed on every screen. Commander Sisktav pressed his communicator to his ear, his expression growing darker with each word he received. "What is it?" Counselor Yethmaran demanded. "The Tau Ceti supply depot is under attack," he reported grimly. "But it's not like any human attack we've seen before. They're using Federation military codes and advanced tactical coordination." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, as if in pain. "They found out about the neural implants. This isn't going to be a surgical strike anymore." "What do you mean?" Zara asked, though the cold dread in her stomach suggested she already knew. "My people have rules of engagement. Weapon shipments are fair targets with minimal force. But torture devices?" Marcus opened his eyes, and the steel in them made several council members step back. "Those facilities get eliminated completely." The main viewing screen activated, showing a live feed from the Tau Ceti system. Federation ships were already rushing toward the supply depot, but they were too late. Explosions bloomed across the massive station as human fighters swarmed around it like angry insects. Estimated casualties. Counselor Yethmaran asked quietly. Commander Sisktav consulted his readout. 3,000 Federation personnel were stationed at that depot. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of the continuing alarms. On the screen, the supply depot's main reactor went critical, turning the entire structure into an expanding ball of plasma. 3,000 people, Counselor Vextool whispered. "The savages killed 3,000 people over some equipment." "No," Marcus said firmly. 3,000 people died because the Federation decided to torture prisoners of war. The human resistance gave you a chance to withdraw those implants. You chose not to take it. You're defending mass murder." Vextool snarled. "I'm explaining the consequences of your actions." Marcus's voice remained steady, but Zara could see the pain in his eyes. "Do you think I wanted this? Do you think any of us want to kill Federation citizens? We're fighting for our survival against an empire that considers us animals fit only for slavery." Another alarm sounded, and new tactical displays appeared on the screens. Commander Sisktaff's face went pale. "What now?" Counselor Yethmaran asked. "Human strike teams have just attacked Federation installations at 7 different systems. Simultaneously, perfect coordination." He looked at Marcus with newfound respect and fear. "This level of strategic planning, it's beyond anything we thought humans were capable of." "Because you never bothered to actually study us," Marcus replied. "You saw primitive technology and assumed primitive minds. You made the classic mistake of any occupying force. You underestimated the enemy." The main screen shifted to show multiple battle feeds. Human fighters moved with precision that shocked the watching Federation officials. Their tactics were sophisticated, their coordination flawless, and their technology, while different from Federation designs, was clearly highly advanced. "How?" Counselor Yethmaran breathed. "Our intelligence reports said humans had barely achieved interstellar flight." "Your intelligence reports were wrong?" "Earth had been preparing for contact with alien civilizations for decades before you found us. We knew statistically that any advanced alien culture we encountered would likely be hostile." Marcus gestured toward the screens showing the battles. "What you're seeing is the result of 50 years of military preparation." Commander Sisktaff was speaking urgently into his communicator, trying to coordinate the Federation's response. But it was clear that their forces were being overwhelmed across multiple fronts. "They're using our own tactics against us," he reported in disbelief. "Somehow they know our standard response protocols." "Of course they do," Marcus said. "I taught them?" The admission sent a shockwave through the chamber. Several council members called for Marcus to be arrested immediately. But Counselor Yethmaran raised her hand for silence. "Explain," she commanded. "I spent 3 years in Federation custody before being sold at that slave market. 3 years watching your military procedures, studying your tactics, memorizing your protocols." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Every piece of intelligence I gathered was passed along to the human resistance." "You trained your own enemy? Traitor?" Counselor Vextool lunged toward Marcus, but Zara stepped between them. "Stop!" she commanded. "Can't you see what's happening here? This war is destroying both sides. The Federation will crush these human insects," Vextool snarled. "We have 1,000 worlds and unlimited resources. And humans have something you don't," Marcus replied quietly. "They have nothing left to lose. When you strip away everything someone cares about, when you turn them into property to be bought and sold, you create the most dangerous enemy possible, someone who would rather die than surrender." The tactical displays showed Federation reinforcements arriving at several battle sites, only to find that the human forces had already vanished. It was classic guerrilla warfare, executed with mathematical precision. "They're gone," Commander Siskov reported. "All targets hit, all human forces withdrawn. Total Federation casualties, approximately 12,000. Human casualties, 0. The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 12,000 Federation citizens dead in coordinated strikes that lasted less than 2 hours. "This cannot continue," Councillor Yethmaran said firmly. "The Federation cannot sustain this level of casualties." "Then maybe it's time to consider peace negotiations?" Marcus suggested. "Peace? With animals?" Councillor Vextool's voice was filled with disgust. "With an enemy that just demonstrated the ability to strike 12 targets simultaneously across 1,000 light-years of space," Marcus corrected. "With an enemy that could have killed 50,000 Federation citizens today, but chose to limit their targets to military installations. With an enemy that shows more restraint in warfare than the Federation shows toward prisoners." Another communication signal came through, and Commander Sisktov's expression grew even grimmer. "What now?" Councillor Yethmaran asked wearily. "Human forces have just transmitted a message on all Federation frequencies. They're offering to exchange all captured Federation personnel for the immediate release of all human slaves." "Preposterous!" Vextool snapped. "We don't negotiate with terrorists. They're also offering a complete ceasefire if the Federation agrees to recognize human sovereignty and withdraws from all human-controlled systems." The chamber erupted in angry voices. The idea of negotiating with humans was unthinkable to most Federation officials. But the tactical displays showed a different reality. Human forces had just demonstrated the ability to strike anywhere in Federation space at will. "They're offering you a way out," Marcus said over the noise. "A chance to end this war before it gets worse." "Worse?" Councillor Vextool laughed harshly. "What could be worse than today?" Marcus's expression grew cold. "Today was a demonstration of human capability. Tomorrow would be a demonstration of human determination. Do you really want to find out the difference?" Before anyone could respond, the chamber's main doors burst open. Captain Vextar strode in with a squad of hegemony soldiers, their weapons drawn. "This has gone far enough," he announced. "The human is coming with me." Commander Siskov moved to intercept them. "This is Federation territory. You have no authority here. The hegemony has treaties with the Federation regarding dangerous prisoners. This human is clearly a threat to galactic security." Zara stepped protectively in front of Marcus. "He's under diplomatic protection. You can't take him." Captain Vextar's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Diplomatic protection doesn't apply to enemy combatants. And this human has just admitted to treason against the Federation." "Wait," Marcus said quietly. He placed a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder. "It's okay." "No, it's not okay," Zara said firmly. "I won't let them take you to those gladiator pits." "Actually," Marcus replied, "I think Captain Vextar might be doing us a favor." Everyone in the chamber stared at him in confusion. Captain Vextar's soldiers raised their weapons, but Marcus remained perfectly calm. "You see," Marcus continued conversationally, "the human resistance has been trying to figure out how to rescue their captured leader for months. But Federation security around this planet is too tight for a conventional extraction." "What are you talking about?" Vextar demanded. "I'm talking about the fact that hegemony ships have much weaker security than Federation vessels. And hegemony space stations are laughably easy to infiltrate. Captain Vexstar's confidence wavered slightly. You're bluffing, am I? Marcus smiled, and for the first time since Zara had met him, he looked truly dangerous. Tell me, Captain, how many ships do you have escorting your transport? That's classified information. 6, 2 heavy cruisers and 4 destroyers. You also have a station crew of approximately 800 at your Gladiator facility. Marcus's smile grew wider. Did I mention that human forces specialize in rescuing prisoners from heavily defended positions? The color drained from Captain Vexstar's scaly features. You're lying. Humans don't have the technology to track our ships, don't we? Marcus gestured toward the tactical displays showing the aftermath of the coordinated strikes. Captain, you're about to learn the same lesson the Federation just learned. Never underestimate your enemy. Alarm suddenly begged. The Federation diplomatic transport ship Harmony sliced through hyperspace toward the capital world of Nexus Prime. In the ship's secure passenger compartment, Zara sat across from Marcus, studying his every movement. Her father had insisted on keeping the human in restraints during transport, but Zara had argued for basic dignity. The compromise was a single energy shackle around Marcus's ankle that would paralyze him if he moved too far from his assigned seat. You're very calm for someone who was a slave an hour ago. Zara observed. Marcus looked out the viewport at the swirling colors of hyperspace. Panic doesn't solve problems? Clear thinking does. Is that human philosophy? It's soldier philosophy. The words slipped out before Marcus could catch them, and Zara's eyes sharpened with interest. Soldier? You were military? Marcus hesitated. He had already said too much, but there was something about this young woman that made him want to trust her. Former military. Before the Federation found Earth. What kind of military? Before Marcus could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Ambassador Kethmoran to the bridge immediately. Priority Alpha communication from Nexus Prime. Through the viewport, they could see Ambassador Kethmoran hurrying toward the front of the ship, his ceremonial robes flowing behind him. The moment he was out of earshot, Marcus leaned forward. Zara, listen carefully. When we reach Nexus Prime, your father is going to face pressure to hand me over to Federation security. They don't like the idea of a human slave being owned by an ambassador's daughter. How could you possibly know that? Because that's what I would do if I were them. Marcus met her eyes steadily. The question is, do you trust me enough to help me prevent it? Zara felt her hearts beating faster. Both of them. What are you asking me to do? I need you to get me to the Federation Council chambers. There's something they need to see. That's impossible. Even I don't have access to the council chambers without proper authorization. You have diplomatic immunity as an ambassador's daughter. You can request a hearing. A hearing for what? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, weighing his words carefully. To present evidence that the Federation's intelligence about human capabilities is dangerously incomplete. Before Zara could respond, the ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, the gleaming towers of Nexus Prime came into view, stretching up from the planet's surface like silver needles piercing the sky. Ambassador Kethmoran returned looking troubled. Change of plans, he announced. We're not going to the family compound. Federation security wants to debrief the human immediately. Father, no, Zara stood up. He's my legal property. They can't just take him. They can and they will if they determine he poses a security risk. Her father's expression was grim. Apparently there have been some developments regarding the human resistance movement. Marcus's expression didn't change, but Zara noticed his hands clench slightly. What kind of developments? She asked. 3 Federation research stations have been destroyed in the past week, all by human insurgents who appeared to have detailed knowledge of Federation security protocols. The transport ship settled onto the landing pad with a gentle thump. Through the viewport, Zara could see Federation security officers in their distinctive black armor waiting for them. They think I'm connected to the attacks. Marcus said quietly. Ambassador Kethmoran's eye stalks focused on the human with new suspicion. Are you? No, but I understand why they might think so. The airlock cycled open, and a tall Vrexian security officer stepped aboard. His reptilian features were impossible to read, but his voice carried clear authority. "I am Commander Sisktav of Federation Security. I'm here to collect the human prisoner for questioning." "He's not a prisoner," Zara said firmly. "He's legally purchased property." "The legal status of enemy combatants is subject to review," Commander Sisktav replied. "Please step aside." Zara moved to block the commander's path to Marcus. "I demand a hearing before the Federation Council. As a citizen with diplomatic immunity, it's my right." Commander Siskatav's eyes narrowed. "This is not a matter for the Council. This is a security issue." "Then make it a matter for the Council," Marcus spoke for the first time, his voice carrying an unexpected authority. "Because if you take me into custody without due process, you're going to regret it." The security commander's hand moved toward his weapon. "Is that a threat, human?" "It's a prediction." Zara stepped between them. "Commander, I invoke my right to a council hearing." The human comes with me. For a tense moment, it looked like Commander Sisktav might refuse. But diplomatic immunity was one of the Federation's most sacred laws, and violating it would create a political incident that no security officer wanted to face. "You have 1 hour," he said finally. "After that, the human comes with me regardless of council decisions." 2 hours later, Zara stood in the massive council chambers at the heart of Nexus Prime. Representatives from dozens of Federation species filled the circular amphitheater, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and textures. At the center of the chamber sat the Council of 9. The most powerful beings in the galaxy. Marcus stood beside her, still wearing the simple clothes from the slave market, but somehow looking more dignified than many of the ornately dressed council members. "Honorable Council," Zara began, her voice echoing in the vast chamber, "I appear before you today to challenge the Federation's fundamental assumptions about human nature and capabilities." Councillor Yethmaran, an elderly Kethran with silver-tinged skin, leaned forward. "Explain yourself, young Kethmoran." "The Federation believes humans are primitive savages, barely above animals. But I believe this human can prove otherwise." "One specimen proves nothing," interrupted Councillor Vextool, whose family connection to Captain Vexstar was obvious from their similar reptilian features. "Humans are violent, unpredictable creatures. Recent attacks on our research stations prove this beyond doubt." Marcus stepped forward. "Councillor, may I address the chamber?" The question sent a ripple of shocked whispers through the gallery. "Slaves didn't speak to the Council, ever." "Absolutely not," Councillor Vextool snapped. "We do not take testimony from animals." "Then you're making a mistake that will cost the Federation dearly," Marcus said calmly. The chamber fell silent. Councillor Yethmaran studied Marcus with new interest. "Explain." "The attacks on your research stations weren't random acts of violence. They were surgical strikes designed to retrieve specific information while causing minimal casualties." "How could you possibly know that?" demanded Councillor Vextool. "Because I trained some of the people who carried them out." The chamber erupted in chaos. Security guards moved toward Marcus, but he raised his hands peacefully. "My name is Marcus Chun," he continued, his voice somehow carrying over the noise. "Former Lieutenant Colonel, Earth Defense Forces, Special Operations Division." Commander Sisktav had entered the chamber and was pushing through the crowd toward Marcus. "Enough! This human is clearly dangerous." "Commander, stop," Councillor Yethmaran commanded. "Let him speak." Marcus nodded gratefully to the elder counselor. "The humans you've been fighting aren't savage animals. They're highly trained soldiers fighting a guerrilla war against an occupying force. Every attack has been carefully planned to minimize civilian casualties while maximizing strategic impact." "Lies," Councillor Vextool snarled. "Humans lack the intelligence for such sophisticated operations." "Do we?" Marcus asked quietly. "Your research station at Kepler 442b, the one where I was captured. Do you know why I was there?" The council chamber was completely silent now. Even the whispers from the gallery had stopped. "I was there to prevent an attack." My people had planned to destroy the entire station, but intelligence indicated there were civilian researchers aboard. I went in alone to evacuate them before the strike team arrived. Counselor Yethmaran leaned back in her chair. You were trying to save Federation citizens? I was trying to save innocent lives. When your security forces found me, I was in the process of getting 12 Catherine researchers to the escape pods. Zara felt her heart skip. That's why you were captured. You could have escaped, but you stayed to help people who were supposed to be your enemies. Marcus nodded. The mission was a success. The researchers escaped safely, and the strike team destroyed only the military sections of the station. 0 civilian casualties? Commander Siskov had reached the center of the chamber. This proves nothing except that the human is a dangerous enemy operative. Actually, Commander, it proves something very important, Counselor Yethmaran said thoughtfully. It proves that human military doctrine includes protection of non-combatants. That's not the behavior of savages. Moreover, Marcus continued, I can provide intelligence that will prevent future attacks and save Federation lives. But only if the Federation is willing to acknowledge that humans are capable of rational negotiation. What kind of intelligence? Another council member asked. Locations, timing, targets. But more importantly, I can tell you why the attacks are happening and how they can be stopped without further bloodshed. The chamber buzzed with excited conversation. Several council members were whispering urgently to their aides. Commander Siskov stepped closer to Marcus. This could be disinformation. We have no way to verify his claims. Actually, you do, Marcus replied. The auction block stank of fear and desperation. Zara pressed her slender blue fingers against the viewing window of the Catherine slave market, watching as another batch of prisoners shuffled forward in chains. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd, until they settled on one figure that made her heart race. The human stood taller than most of the other slaves. His dark hair matted with dried blood from what looked like a recent beating. His clothes were torn rags, barely covering the scars that crisscrossed his muscular frame. But it wasn't his appearance that caught Zara's attention. It was the way he moved. While the other prisoners cowered and stumbled, this human walked with purpose. His head was up, shoulders back, and his dark eyes constantly scanned his surroundings. Even in chains, he looked dangerous. Lot number 47, the auctioneer's voice boomed across the marketplace. Human male. Captured during the raid on the research station at Kepler 442b, warning to potential buyers. This specimen has already killed 3 guards during transport. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Most species in the Galactic Federation considered humans to be little more than primitive animals. They were known for being aggressive and unpredictable, but few believed they posed any real threat to advanced civilizations. Bidding starts at 500 credits, the auctioneer continued. Zara's father, Ambassador Kethmorn, shook his head in disgust. Barbaric creatures, he muttered. The Federation should have wiped them out when we had the chance. They're not animals, Father, Zara whispered, but her words were lost in the noise of the crowd. The bidding was slow. A few mining companies showed mild interest, probably looking for workers they could abuse without consequences. The current bid stood at only 800 credits when Zara noticed something that made her blood run cold. Captain Vextar of the Hegemony Military was standing near the front of the crowd, his reptilian features twisted into what might have been amusement. The Hegemony was known for their brutal gladiator fights, and they had a particular fondness for forcing different species to fight to the death for entertainment. 1,000 credits, Vextar called out, his voice carrying easily across the marketplace. The auctioneer's eye stalks perked up with interest. 1,000 from Captain Vextar. Do I hear 1,100? Zara's mind raced. She had seen the Hegemony's gladiator pits before, and the thought of this human being thrown to those monsters made her sick. She had to do something. 1,500. She called out, standing up from her seat. The entire marketplace fell silent. Every eye turned toward her, and she could feel her father's shocked gaze burning into the side of her head. Zara, what are you doing? Ambassador Kethmorn hissed under his breath. 2,000, Vextar countered. his cold eyes fixing on Zara with obvious displeasure. 3,000, Zara shot back without hesitation. Now the crowd was buzzing with excitement. It wasn't every day that the daughter of a Federation ambassador got into a bidding war over a human slave. Vextar's expression darkened. 4,000 credits. Zara felt her confidence waver. 4,000 credits was more money than she had in her personal accounts. But as she looked down at the human on the auction block, she saw something that strengthened her resolve. He was looking directly at her, and there was something in his dark eyes that spoke to her: intelligence, understanding, hope. 5,000 credits, she declared. Her voice ringing across the marketplace. The silence stretched for long seconds. Captain Vextar's clawed hands clenched into fists, and for a moment Zara thought he might challenge her to physical combat. But even the brutal hegemony wouldn't risk attacking the daughter of a Federation ambassador in broad daylight. Going once, the auctioneer called. Going twice. Sold to Ambassador Kethmoran's daughter for 5,000 credits. As the crowd began to disperse, Zara's father grabbed her arm. What have you done? He demanded. 5,000 credits for a human? Have you lost your mind? I couldn't let them take him to the gladiator pits, Zara said quietly. So what? One less savage in the galaxy? You've embarrassed me in front of half the Federation's military leadership. Zara pulled her arm free. He's not a savage, father. Look at him. Really look. Ambassador Kethmoran glanced down at the auction block where guards were removing the human's chains. Even free of restraints, the human didn't try to run or attack. He simply stood there waiting. All I see is a dangerous animal that you've wasted 5,000 credits on, her father said. When we get home, you're going to explain to me exactly what you plan to do with your new pet. Zara watched as the guards began leading the human toward the processing area where new purchases were prepared for transfer to their owners. She had acted on impulse, driven by a feeling she couldn't quite explain. But now she had to figure out what to do next. 20 minutes later, she stood in the slave processing facility as a bored Catherine clerk handed her a datapad to sign. Standard ownership transfer, the clerk explained. The human is now legally your property. Standard warnings apply. Humans are considered dangerous and unpredictable. The facility recommends keeping the specimen sedated or restrained at all times. Zara took the pad but didn't sign it immediately. Instead, she looked through the transparent barrier at the holding cell where the human waited. He sat on the metal bench with his back straight, hands resting calmly on his knees. Most slaves in his position would be pacing frantically or curled up in a corner crying. This human looked like he was meditating. What's his name? She asked. The clerk checked his screen. No registered name. Captured humans rarely give their real names. The guards have been calling him Savage due to his violent resistance during capture. Zara winced. Has he been violent since arriving here? Only when provoked. 3 guards tried to assault him on the first night. All 3 ended up in the medical bay. The clerk shrugged. Humans are deceptively strong for their size. I want to speak with him. The clerk's eye stalks twisted in surprise. That's unusual. Most owners prefer to keep their slaves sedated during transport. Not most owners, Zara said firmly. Open the cell. The clerk hesitated, then pressed a button on his console. The barrier slid aside with a soft hiss, and Zara stepped into the holding cell. The human looked up at her, and she was struck again by the intelligence in his dark eyes. Hello, she said in Standard Galactic, then switched to the basic English she had learned during her diplomatic studies. My name is Zara. The human's eyebrows rose slightly. It was clear he hadn't expected her to know his language. You speak English, he said. His voice was deeper than she had expected, with a rough edge that suggested he hadn't spoken much recently. A little. I studied human culture at the academy. She paused, suddenly uncertain how to proceed. I bought you. I know. He studied her face carefully. Why? It was such a simple question, but Zara found herself struggling to answer. Because you didn't deserve to end up in the gladiator pits. Something shifted in the human's expression. The wariness remained, but there was something else now. Curiosity, maybe. You know about the hegemony pits? He asked. I've seen them. They're... She searched for the right word. Evil. The human was quiet for a long moment. What's your name again? Zara Kethmoran? Kethmoran. You're the ambassador's daughter. It wasn't a question. Yes, my father thinks I'm insane for buying you. The human almost smiled at that. Are you? Zara considered the question seriously. Maybe. I spent 5,000 credits on impulse to save someone I'd never met. That doesn't sound entirely sane. This time the human did smile, just a little. 5,000 credits is a lot of money in the Federation. It is. What's your real name? I know they've been calling you Savage, but that's not who you are. The human studied her for another long moment, as if weighing whether he could trust her. Finally he spoke. Marcus. My name is Marcus Chun. Marcus, Zara repeated, trying out the unfamiliar sounds. That's a good name. Better than Savage. Thank you. For everything. I know what Vexstar had planned for me. You're welcome. But I have to be honest with you, Marcus. I don't know what happens next. I've never owned I've never been in this situation before. Marcus nodded slowly. If I may ask, what were you hoping to accomplish? It was a fair question, and one that Zara had been asking herself since the bidding ended. I suppose I was hoping to prove that humans aren't the savages everyone thinks you are. And how do you plan to do that? Zara thought about her father's reaction, about the skeptical looks from the other Federation officials, about the challenge that lay ahead. I have no idea, she admitted. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then he looked directly into her eyes. I might have some suggestions. What kind of suggestions? The kind that might surprise a lot of people about what humans are really capable of. Outside the holding cell, Zara could hear her father's voice arguing with the facility administrator about expediting the transfer process. Soon they would be on their way back to the Federation capital, where she would have to face the consequences of her impulsive decision. But looking at Marcus now, seeing the intelligence and determination in his eyes, Zara felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Maybe this wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe this was the beginning of something important. Tell me about these suggestions, she said quietly. Marcus glanced toward the door where he,